Yeah, you have to be a little crazy to do this, which is why I get to invite everybody onto the show. So first of all, thank you everybody for joining us today on the Redacted Culture Cast. I have as a guest Jon Dufresne, sometimes goes by Mocha Bear. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Jon Dufresne. I'm the owner of Kinetic Consulting, and yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Let's talk about things.
And Kinetic Consulting does accomplish multiple tasks. You guys have a training
Yes.
schedule?
Yeah, so a lot of training, consulting for agencies, different entities, totally, and then we have R&D. We do a lot of T&E for a lot of companies, and we design our own products and actually sell our own products as well. I also write for a few different companies, like different magazines and stuff. And yeah, that's a small portion of it.
Awesome. Yeah. So I will have to send you something for T&E in the near future, but we'll see when that happens.
Cool.
For those who are listening, for those who are still listening, that now that you've gotten past the introduction, you know that this show is supported by you guys, the listeners. You can support us through our merch at redactedllc.com. We do thank you for what you have done so far. We are carrying on with optimism. But as today's conversation, Jon, so you and I have the benefit of background. We've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
We met a long time ago in a state, for me, far, far away. But you, so you have transitioned from military into training, which, from the outside looking in, can look not surprising. Like, oh, okay, that's a natural progression, right? However, for those of us who have been in the military, it's not. Although there's a natural sense to the progression, it's not always like a smooth or immediate piece. You don't get out of the military and someone doesn't run up to you and be like, "Oh, we need a local instructor. Here you go." You know.
Right.
So how was your transition from military to training? How did that go?
Well, it actually kind of worked pretty seamless for the most part, because I did a lot of teaching while I was in the military. So whenever we got new Raspies, somebody had to teach them how to shoot. So it was cool. Like, I had a couple NCOs that they were all about it, right? They were competitive shooters. They knew that I enjoyed competitive shooting, so we would actually go and shoot together on the weekends and stuff. So it ended up being natural that, they had, a freaking Private Duffy and then Corporal Duffy doing little, tasks like that and helping dudes out, especially when I was getting out of the Army. When I was ACAPing, we got like 14 brand new dudes, and like I got to do all their training. So it was kind of fun. Well, the training that I was able to get to. But then from there, I was teaching for Frank Proctor from Way of the Gun for a little bit. And I still do every once in a while, or teach with him. And so it was cool being able to shoot with him often and compete with him while I was still in the military too. And then once I left, I just kind of stopped teaching for a little bit because I started a career in the security industry. And then from there, I kind of picked it back up, and I always enjoyed shooting, so it was very easy for me in that way. But eventually, I started my own company to help out and consult for a local agency, and it grew. And they spoke to another agency, and they spoke to another agency, and then somebody asked me one day. They were like, "Well, why don't you just teach civilians too?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I could do that." And so opened it up and really got teaching more and more, and also teach for Stage Dynamics, so for Aaron Cowan. So I do a lot of, or I kind of like worked my way into it. But what I found is like a lot of guys that ask me these questions, like, "Oh, how'd you get into it?" Because they want to do it or something. It's not like the easiest thing in the world, because you can't just be good at the thing, right? You can't just be good at I can't just be good at opening this water bottle. Like, I have to be able to describe to you in detail and make it so easy for you to digest that you could understand the complexities to opening the cap on that thing. So if people can't convey what they're trying to do or be clear and concise about what they're trying to give you in information form, you may not receive it the right way. So learning or start teaching it's a skill of its own, and I think that's something that we kind of miss out on in this industry a little bit. Like the difference between a teacher and like an instructor.
So you get out of the military and you're in college because you made that choice. And if you're thinking about teaching, highly recommend going and taking a speech class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
for sure. Good. For sure. Did you utilize your GI Bill?
I did. I went to college. I started college when I was like 25 or 26.
Yep,
so
same.
It was a little after. And did my associates. I have my degree and my bachelor's degree in business. So nothing too fancy, and kind of I've stopped there so far. I thought about going further, but just don't feel like wasting money that way. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, the firearms side, or the gun culture, or the shooting world has it. Like it's not the same. You know, a degree will get you certain places, but there are plenty of places where it just doesn't fit.
Well, it's not just about the piece of paper either. It's like what kind of knowledge am I going to get from there that I can apply to my circumstances or my future circumstances that I'm trying to achieve, right? Like, my entrepreneur class in business school was awesome, right? It opened my eyes to like kind of running my own thing and creating my own business. And I was like, this makes sense because I actually have my own business. So it was very useful where like the law classes didn't do anything for me for the most part. And anything that I want to know about that's specific to my industry, I could actually look that up and learn about it. So little things in there help you.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, yeah. One of the things that I've noticed about even this culture, this industry, is it's not a one-to-one translation, right? So, like, if you take a business guy who's good at his business things, you can't just step into gun culture and make a company successful, right? Just because you're following your rules of business 101. It's like, no, you really have to know the nuances of the space. And it's for better and for worse. You know, I don't know if, many of us have seen at least the after effects of somebody not from this culture coming in thinking that they know something about business and completely upending their own ship. And the inverse is true, though. There's always room. So you teach classes. What is I know you teach some night vision classes. I know you teach some pistol and rifle based classes. And then I think I've seen some CQB kind of focused classes. And they can find your calendar at on your website.
Yeah.
That's kinetic-consulting.net?
.net, yeah.
Okay. Kineticconsulting.net. Gotcha. You can I think you're popular enough in Google that Google will just get Google.
Yeah, I've actually done my own SEO. So it's something else, like more learning, if you want to call it that. I learned to build and use and operate my website fully, so I don't rely on other people to do it. And that way, when there's something wrong with it or I misspell a word or something, I can go fix it. You know, so,
hero.
Yeah, so
running your own website.
How dare I? You know, but yeah, it was just a little learning experience for me, but yeah, like everything about it. So the SEO all the way down to the newsletters, everything. I do everything myself. So it's kind of cool, like being able to do that, at least function wise.
Well, I mean, there was a time where we were supposed to say things like sua sponte, so good for you.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, so your training, what do you have? Oh, here's the easy one. Do you have open enrollment night vision CQB classes?
I do.
You do? Okay.
I do. I'm a fan of teaching civilians. Like, I think everybody should know how to do things. Some people like to, hey, you shouldn't teach that TTP to them or whatever. Go on YouTube, man. Like, it's all available.
Okay,
like,
when you say some people, are you saying people within the culture or people outside of the culture?
no,
Because
no, within the culture, right? Like
really,
within the culture, they don't want to, they want to like gatekeep it, right? Like, oh no, it's tactics. You only teach that to law enforcement or military. But realistically speaking, like they're going to learn it in some way or another, right? Like whether they go on YouTube and they see it on the internet, or they go and watch a movie, you see certain little TTPs popping up. It may be wrong, which is good because like maybe somebody's not seeing it, but like it doesn't matter. What matters is that your skill level in that actual, that task is above whatever you're going against. So,
yeah,
in my opinion, like it doesn't matter if somebody knows what you're going to do. It matters how good you can do that thing so that they don't get a chance to counter it. So, but I mean, there's differing opinions, but I like teaching it.
that's
I
a
like
good. I
being
mean,
able to, the challenge of it too is amazing, where you take, 12 to 16 dudes that have never met each other and you somehow make them a cohesive team in the next 2 or 3 days and they're all able to work together. It's really impressive.
yeah, that's a good point on. That's a good point on the the gatekeeping subject because I think due to timing and it's being germane to the culture writ large, that subject seems to come up a lot. This idea of
Mm-hmm.
gatekeeping, like, and I say a lot, like, pretty regular, maybe, 1 in 3 conversations at least brings up the concept of gatekeeping.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I think there's the legal aspect of gatekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean that is you have an instructor who is of the opinion and the demeanor to say, I can't actually teach this in a class because then it will render me legally liable for an action that may or may not happen in the future, which is one form of gatekeeping because, like, I guess it's one form in the sense of gatekeeping by saying, like, well, you don't technically have the job description, so I can't justify in a court of law teaching you something. And I think that's like probably the least pompous way to answer the question, because you're like deferring responsibility to the legal system.
Yeah, it's like saying, "Hey, man, I can't do that. My insurance company doesn't, allow me."
Yeah, yeah.
You're kind of like blaming somebody else for not wanting to or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I
you
can
just say you don't want to,
well, no, like I can understand it from a risk based scenario, but I'm not actually, I wouldn't say I would justify it, because
Okay.
if you're in a position where you're going to introduce a subject and then tell your students that you can't teach them, that's a you problem. You should not be. That's definitely a you problem. And students will ask about things,
Yeah.
but I also think that tide is changing, and I think that tide is changing really quickly, because that seemed to be a really 2010, 2013 attitude of which, oh my gosh, that attitude's so 2020.
Still run into it every once in a while.
Once in a while, but it's definitely like the front of things.
Yeah. For me personally, like I see the more knowledgeable, good people that are out there, the better, right? Like if you can educate more people, right? Like, because it all comes down to education, in my opinion. Because anything can get somebody hurt, right? Like the school system teaches all sorts of shenanigans, and like the school system's not held liable for what that person does in their future. You know what I mean? So for me, when it comes to it, it's like I'm providing education, and hopefully it's something that they can use to improve their life or save lives, or it's not done out of a malicious intent in any way. So really being held liable for it would be something that we could probably talk to a lawyer about it and figure that out. But I find that to be a very thin argument for teaching, because it's like, okay, like the movies teach you things. I don't see anybody suing Hollywood for, like, hey, that guy shot that gun like that, and I did that, and I actually got hurt doing it. Like, no, it was like they didn't, like, they're showing you this.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the suspended reality, or like what Breaking Bad taught me how to cook meth.
yeah.
I have to brain. I don't think I haven't seen this show, but I've more than like the first 2 episodes. But I get it. Yeah, like the entertainment industry is not held responsible. And there is a line to be crossed there. But I think I do find it a very ethically challenging argument, and I find it extremely frustrating that both judges and lawyers seem to know so absolutely so little about what we do. Even you know what I mean? Like it's just
Well, it's the same thing with technically with us, right? Like I don't know what judges and lawyers do every day too. I don't follow their guidelines or their industry, if you want to call it that. But that's because I'm not, a lying piece of shit. So okay, but
well,
overall,
there goes our monetization.
my bad, buddy.
No, you're good. It's completely fine, man.
You could just redact that. Aha. So
well, now I'm not going to because it's funny. Nah, dude, we're good.
But yeah, over the course of the years, like I think like the more good people I can educate is what my goal is. Is to constantly educate humans to be better, because we have so many bad people in this world, like so many, like just I mean, however you describe bad, I guess, because everybody has a different perspective on things like that. But people that are morally corrupt and morally incorrect in a way, and then there you have the other peeps that are like trying to work for helping people and make people better. And we need more better people, if that makes sense, like human beings that are doing the right thing as human beings, not continuously slaughtering and causing genocide or doing genocide, but like being good human beings. For example, like the human trafficking stuff, right? That industry is so interesting to me, because there are people that take their time out of their lives to go and help prevent this or relocate these people that were taken from their homes unwillingly or by being coerced, and then all of a sudden like they're now being traded as slaves, and it's 2022, man. like it's like that's still a thing, and people just like brush it off all the time, but there are still good people that are doing that stuff. Like I know a multitude of guys and like even to yourself that still do that shit and spend their times taking care of people in that way, and being good people, like just out of the goodness of their hearts, because most of the time you don't get paid to do that shit. So the same with like anti-poaching, like the poor animals, like I get it. Like we took over most of the world, so now animals don't got no place to live. So we're trying to help them not be poached and, put into extinction. So because the ecosystem kind of makes our whole world kind of go round, kind of thing. So even that, like good people take time out of their lives to do that shit for free sometimes. And it's because they have moral, or they want to do the right thing. So I want to educate more good people, or make people more good, if that makes sense, by using education as the stream to do so. And that's how I look at all these things.
Yeah, I mean, and the anti-poaching thing isn't entirely selfless. It's a little Ayn Randian selfish, because I want my children to see an elephant and a giraffe.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but that's not. I mean, that's a hyper simplification.
Oh, absolutely. But
usually we don't.
They're part of like an ecosystem that has to like kind of function. So once an animal becomes extinct, you'll look at the ecosystem that they were part of, or that chain that they were part of, and it starts to become skewed in some form or fashion. So that predator is no longer around. Now some pest is able to like continue doing its thing. So the predator was actually the good guy, and they were doing good. And now you got this pest that terrorizes and destroys things, right?
Yeah,
like
destroys crops, destroys
right.
ecosystems. Like you have
in
feral
the
hogs. Yeah. There we don't have feral hogs out in this area, but you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so it's things like that. Like, and I'm, like, again, like I'm going off on like crazy tangents and stuff, but like it's just, these are the crazy little things that I think about when it comes to like trying to build good people, is like, where does it go to? Like, what are we going to do with it? And why are we going to do it? So little things like that.
Which is part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, is because of conversations that we've had regarding things like the ethics of being capable of violence, or I think one subject that comes up that would define it, and I want your opinion on it, is the relationship between capability, responsibility, and what I would say is intention. Maybe motivate, maybe not intention, but direction. Because, I can want to be cool like a Navy SEAL. I want to be able to do the things that a Navy SEAL or an Army Ranger or Delta Force guy does. But those skill sets, unpracticed or undirected, are either chaotic or atrophy, right? I don't have.
It depends, right? Like, it depends on what task they're talking about. Because if I want to be like an Army Ranger and I want to be able to just, be able to move my body with heavy shit for a really long distance, like, cool, man. I mean, if you don't have the capability, but maybe getting the physical fitness up, and that gets you excited about doing more, like, cool. But if you're talking like on the crazy tactical shenanigans, like, you may not have the facilitation to do so. And then you got to also think, like, it's only a small portion of each of our jobs, right? Like, think about like when we were in, dude, like, we did very little like rangering. We did a lot of Army shenanigans, right?
A lot of, yeah. Is your online learning up to date?
Yeah, like, I whenever people are like, oh man, I want to be a Ranger, I'm like, oh, that's easy, dude. You just got to get a parachute harness and then just sit outside on the hot tarmac for hours. And if you can do that, you could do. You got to drink. You do it.
You got to drink a half gallon of water, so you have to use the bathroom, and then you also have to spend about a third of that time trying to find a blank firing adapter for an M203.
Yeah,
if you can do those,
or a can of AIR, like, just whatever it is, just stupid shit. But it's like, it's because, think about it, most of the military is run by 20-year-olds.
Or at least it runs on 20-year-olds like your body runs on red blood cells. Like, they're just running around doing everything.
That's what it is. Like, you look at most of the Ranger Battalion, the average age was like, what, 21, 22?
Yep, I've seen.
And then, like, that's just a frat house with grenades and rockets.
Come on, man. Yeah, we were better than that.
I don't know, man. You saw the weekends; they were crazy. Like, I remember waking up and like, dude, why are you in the hallway? That was the answer I got. And then
I was sleeping.
Let me get into his fucking barracks room,
Yeah. I was sleeping on the stairwell.
Yeah, exactly. But like, that's what happens sometimes, right? But because it's just like a frat house, man. We just had responsibilities and we had to go do a job.
Yeah,
the frat peeps just get to do whatever and they go to school or whatever.
To the outside world, there is one thing worth mentioning about it, is that if you show up at the wrong time, you will wonder what the hell's going on. Like, this is just a bunch of animals. But then if you zoom back maybe 3 days, they're also extremely high functioning.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, okay, so you just completed airfield seizure and now everyone's passed out on the stairs.
Yeah. Now everybody's exhausted and we're just trying to like fucking de-wind or unwind.
Yep. So it's crazy. And I mean, there are things about it too. We can always look back and say, I wish I didn't do that. But
everybody can do that. Every single person in the world can do that. I wish I didn't do that. Like, there's something out there that they've done. And they're like, I could have made a different choice. That's totally possible.
which is a perfect segue into our next section. So what were some mistakes and things that if someone in the audience is interested in becoming an instructor, or that road is a potentiality to them, what are some mistakes and lessons learned that you've learned as an instructor for being an instructor?
Well, some good lessons right here, right?
Yeah.
The biggest one is getting through your head that, one, you don't know everything, right? You have no idea how much shit is out there. Not as in shit as in bad stuff, but things, right? Stuff. So there's so much out there that you'll never know everything. It's just like anything else in this world. Like, we won't ever know all the things. So you constantly have to be learning new things, always be trying new things. You have to discover new things. And if you don't shoot as a teacher, like if you're a teacher out there and you're not out on the range, like shooting and like learning things or trying new things out that are funky, or maybe testing something out that somebody else told you about, then what you're doing is you're living in your little box, and you're doing a disservice to almost every student you come upon. Because think about it, like the way I hold a handgun and the way you hold a handgun are completely different. And,
well, you are wrong-handed, so I can't help you there. Aren't you left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But the reason I say that is because if you look at both our hands, they're different, dude. We don't have the same fucking hand. So even if we had the same handgun and it was exactly the same, we would have to hold it slightly different, even if it was just 1% different. It would be a different grip. Every single one of us do. So when you look at it, that like take it into like a nuance that far into a nuance, you'll realize that like I need to know more and I need to learn more, because I need to be able to give that to students, right? I need to be able to give you so many options and help you understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you, so that you can make yourself better, right? So my classes, all my mechanics courses that are on my website, focus heavily on self-diagnostics, because if I can diagnose what's going on with me, I need a teacher less, right? Not that I can't learn new things, but I don't need them like hovering over me and helping me, right? So that's the goal as a teacher, is to make your students not need you, right? That's what it should be, at least, right? But out there's too many people, like they're just like, oh, I'll give you this one piece so that you come back for more. Fuck that, dude. No, I want to give you everything you need and more, and then I want you to go work on it. And then if you do come back, hopefully I've learned something new that now I can portray to you too. So if you want to be a teacher, you also have to be a student, because you have to know what a student is thinking, how they're feeling, what scares students, what makes them think different ways. Because if you don't experience these things, like, how the fuck would you know? You know, how are you going to understand where and why they feel the way they feel? Like, for example, I have a student and she has a little bit of anxiety when it comes to shooting. And it's a private student, so like I go out there with her and we work one-on-one to get her understanding like it's okay to shoot stuff. But when she first started, she was scared of shooting, and it's okay. Like, that's a thing. Like, it's a little explosion in your hands. I understand it, but once she got past it and she started understanding, now it's just like the only thing that bothers her is just shooting at distance. It's just hard for her, so we're working on it. But that's all it is. It's like you got to gain certain levels of experience, and if you never try, you won't know. And if I was never scared of shooting, I may not know how to convey the way that I could hopefully help her get through it. Right?
So you recommend that instructors go take other instructors' classes,
100%.
not for the sake of data mining. I know. You know, scumbags are going to scumbag, but at the same time, like, I think most of us know that that's not how it works.
Here's a good example. Is like, shooting is shooting, right? Like, shooting guns is shooting guns. Like, the fundamentals of shooting are there. We all know you have to hold it and not let the sights move while you press the trigger. And once you do that, the bullet does its thing. That's it. That's all it is. So if you cannot move the sights and press triggers, like, that's it. It's how you convey that in detail with explanation, examples, and put that into students' minds and into hopefully their hands to to get them to shoot in the way that they need to shoot. Because once again, it's their shooting, not my shooting, that makes them better. It's their shooting that makes them better. So how do we convey that kind of information, and then also continuously help them grow? And that's by us experiencing different things as well, right? So like, I just got back from Shooter Symposium. That's why I have this like freaking crazy tan line right now in Texas. And every year Shooter Symposium is 4 days of shooting. The first day is like little competitions and having fun. And I love competing right next to the students. I shoot with them. I believe I'm one of the only instructors that actually does that, that's at that event. All the other ones are, doing whatever they're doing. Maybe, I mean, they're probably busy with like video and all this other stuff for like vendors and stuff. But I take time out of that day, that full day, to go spend time with all the students and go shoot with them, talk to them, see what they're experiencing, because it's a little competition. So the stress levels are different. And like, what one guy's feeling isn't what the other guy's feeling. Maybe similar, but I'm curious to see what it is. What makes him shoot like shit and what makes him shoot really good, right? But I could see those things visually. I could hear about it by the way they talk to me about it. And I could actually like, I can be more understanding of what students are experiencing. Then from there, like the next 3 days are all classes. Well, most of my classes are at night. So the only way I get a tan line is to go and spend time in a class during the day while I wait to go teach at night. So I can take the class and wait. Yeah, so I'm training all fucking day.
Yeah, tired John is tired.
Yeah, but it's so worth it, because one dude may say something in a way and you're like, man, I never thought of it that way. And that could just be the difference that makes it different for just one of your students out of the billions of students you'll ever see. But you help that one dude become a better fucking person, right? By just explaining it the way that you heard it from somebody else. And to me, that's not considered data mining if you cite your sources, right? So I think that's important, man. And that's why, like, most of my peers, the ones that I've actually spoken to or hung out with, or they've seen me in class before they ever met me, right? Like, I just show up to classes, and I mean, I pay, I register, I go fly out there, I do the thing, and they don't know me until after the class, or they notice me at the beginning of the class and they're like, what the hell is he doing here? And I'm just there to learn, man. I just want to do student things. I want to see what other students are experiencing, and I want to see how teachers teach, because I could take notes on both, right? And why not want to learn more shit? So learning never ends. And so if you're trying to be a teacher of any sort, whether you're going to teach driving, shooting, polo, it doesn't matter. You still have to be a student to an extent. And you have to figure out how to be. And you have to be one of those that don't have some ego that's going to stop you from learning something because you're like, no, I'm too hard-headed to hear that. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your way because my way's better. No, fuck that. I want to hear your way because I want to see if I can better my way.
Fair. Yeah, I think when it comes to teaching, I'm not an instructor, so this might be 2 cents not worth spending, but
it's only 2 cents.
You and I have heard phrases spoken for years now, right? We're like slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Right.
Even though you're a teacher, always be a student, or always learning, or some phrases of this sort. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with good people, because then you will become like them. Many of these phrases seem to be employed by individuals as acts of or statements of reinforcing their already current commitments, or they descend into platitudes that sound nice but have no meaning.
Okay.
Right? I think this is a little bit on my own observation of like
they don't live what they're speaking.
In myself, I've seen it myself, or I will say a thing that sounds nice. Sounds, oh, okay, that sounds smart. And I'll tell myself that thing. but you go into my skull and there's no, or my heart in that sense, there's no commitment to it. There's no rational component to it. It's just, oh yeah, I'm telling myself this because it makes it. It's not like it just makes me feel good. It's like, okay, there, I'm doing it right. Sometimes you have to stumble through the darkness of cynicism to come to wisdom, and that sounds all pretty and shit. But when you say this as an instructor, because you're giving some examples, as an instructor, you say things like you have to always be learning, always keep an open mind. How have you, are there techniques, habits, or practices that you have implemented, appreciated, or taken advantage of to correct within yourself either a unwillingness to learn, an unwillingness to be a student, or to better understand what it means to be a student, or what it means to be learning on a subject and being willing to learn from other people?
Well, I think one thing that I've done over the years is like use discipline, right, in a way, right, to keep myself honest, right? So in this is just a simple example. So when I teach, if I mess up something in front of all the students or something like that, I actually use it as a teaching point, right? I don't just ignore it or like, oh, don't look at that little guy, don't worry about that little guy, whatever it is. Like I actually like, let's worry about that little guy and let's bring it in. Let's talk about it. Like, let's see what happened, right? What did I feel? What did my hands do? Why did I do that? Why did I make a boo-boo? And to be honest, like, I think shooting in front of students keeps you more honest as well. So not just demonstration wise, but shooting with them in the class, right? Showing them that you're also trying to push yourself. You're also trying to, get better overall. But the discipline that goes with that is also all those misses are something that like I'll go and like, use it as a tool for me to go work out a little bit, right? And go do some burpees, right? Based off of how many misses I had or something, right? And the discipline to like keep doing that, and only you can keep yourself in line realistically. Like you can just fake it and be like, I don't want to, right? And not do it. But for me to come home from, 10 hours on a hot range all day and then still end up knocking out fucking 70, 80 burpees in sets because I missed 7 or 8 rounds that day. That discipline to do that, in my opinion, keeps me where I keep striving for more and betterness, right? Like, or becoming better. So where I don't know how many people actually like do anything to that sort. I don't know how many instructors that actually, use those mistakes as teaching points. I'm sure there are some because I haven't seen everybody and I don't see every class that everybody teaches. So it's impossible for me to know. But the honesty that you hold to yourself and the discipline you hold with yourself is what is portrayed to so many people when you're out and about and doing things. So for example, the passion I have for teaching isn't because I want to like make money. It's because I actually am passionate about making people good, right? And like getting people to become better shooters. So the passion I have for shooting, I want to portray that to students because I don't have to work at it. I don't have to try hard to be passionate about something, right? It's just like anything else. Like if you could think of anything that you really, really like and you are very passionate about, it is not hard to talk about it. It's not hard to help people learn about it. It's not hard to, you could talk for fucking hours on it. Why? Because like it just comes naturally. It's you're passionate about it. You'll spend all day on that shit and all night, so I mean, it never ends. So I think a lot of people, they lose that magic if they had it in the first place. And to keep yourself honest and keep yourself disciplined with it, you yourself have to hold yourself accountable. And if you're not holding yourself accountable, you'll start finding that you become, the guy that just stands in the back and he's like, all right, guys, up, up, like that's not fun, right? Like you're not helping students. You're just making them do reps or whatever. I talk to people about this every once in a while, but like the difference between an instructor and a teacher, right? I know the definition, if you look it up right now, right? Listeners can look it up right now on their phones or freaking interwebs. And realistically, the definition is synonymous, right? Like they're the same thing. A teacher is an instructor and an instructor is a teacher. But the way I perceive that is different. So I look at it as a teacher is a person who is going to teach you a task so you don't once again need that teacher. Like a barista at Starbucks is a good example. If there was a person there that didn't teach them how to make coffees, right? Whatever coffee you like or what is ordered. If they didn't have anybody teaching them how to do that and they just had some instructor there telling them what to do step by step every single time they had a coffee order, it would be really inefficient and you would have this guy micromanaging everything. Not to say an instructor is a micromanager, but that's what that word means to me, is an instructor gives you steps to do and he expects you to follow those steps. And then you're not letting the person think for themselves and solve the steps for themselves and learn with that. But a teacher teaches you the steps and then lets you do the steps. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
my brain works a little funny.
Yeah, no, there's a part of it that sticks, right? It sticks very clearly, and I think it that in your demarcation between a instructor and a teacher is that the instructor presents the how in a mechanical sense for the objective of being able to see the outcome happen in the student. Okay, I saw you do one proper rep. Whereas a teacher is much more focused on, or is in conjunction with the how, including the why and the self-evaluation, so that the teacher is passing on to the student. I know how I'm gripping the handgun, or pieing a door, or using my light laser illuminator combo or my illuminator laser combo to search a piece. But then a teacher will translate the why of that in a way that is edifying to the student without being gratuitous. Gratuitous and ego, and then also the ability to go, oh, I saw how I did that wrong, but I think I can correct it. And those are good, pieces.
That's a good way to put it, because like in one way it's short term, right? As an instructor, you're looking for short term successes, right, in your students. As a teacher, you're looking for their longevity and their long term successes and the continuous success in your student, right, over the course of time. So at least for me, like I want them to get to a collegiate level of fucking shooting. I don't want them to stay in fucking middle school math.
Well, you can actually apply this. I think you can apply this integrity, and it really. I think it's a moral issue. I think the difference between a good teacher and a mediocre teacher is an ethics question. I don't think it's a skill level question. I really think it's an ethics question. Do you have the integrity to do the job correctly, or do you lack the integrity and thus only want the result to look a certain way? And another example of how this translates into another arena is look at. Either you could call it social media marketing, but look at the internet, right? Just Instagram, right? It's oh yeah, that guy has a bunch of cool looking videos, but he's trying to be an instructor, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a certain value to being able to demonstrate your work, absolutely. But if you're lacking the, but if you lack the integrity and you speed up your videos, or and not artistically, right? We are intelligent beings in this culture. I know that there's a difference between playing with the speed of your video for the sake of entertainment and for the sake of kind of one-upsmanship. I'm faster than John, right?
Right.
My split times are 0.05, and you're like, yeah, sure, whatever, dude. Yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah, you shoot faster than that AK at full auto.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, you shoot faster than that AK in full auto. Or although given, I have seen a video where Jerry Micklick's finger is moving faster than the bolt carrier on a shotgun. Bolt, but he's not. He doesn't count. He doesn't count with it.
But it's true though. There are those savants that are out there that is what they were put on this planet to do. Like Micklick and like some of those little freaks of nature that are awesome. It's super cool watching and seeing them, but like, I want to know if they can show me how to do that. How is that being conveyed, or is that literally just a physical attribute that none of us have and can have because it is them being freaks of nature?
Well, I mean, as a competition,
in a good way. Like, I'm not saying it in a bad way or whatever.
But I think when it comes to, I think the primary dividing element and the issue that separates the good from the great is actually an ethics question. Is do you have the integrity to do the work when you're not on camera? Do you have the integrity to be human when necessary? Do you have the integrity to put your money where your mouth is, kind of thing? Like, can you handle the slow rolling heat of being in this culture for a long time? Can you, I think there's a lot of elements to it, but it's
a different way of looking at it, which is, it's interesting to think of it that way. But
okay.
It's true though. There are certain things like, I mean, integrity is a huge thing in general, but like when you look at it in that fashion, it's kind of interesting to see. Like you can literally go through all the Instagram peeps and look through there and be like, like this is what we can categorize this as by looking through this. So it's interesting there.
Because I can look at 2 pages, or I can know 2 people who play with the codecs or play with the recordings and play with their videos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of them will be, oh, that's entertaining. That's an interesting way of doing it, right? And I know that he's playing with the speed, and I know he's doing certain things, right? And another one will be, that guy's a scumbag because he's lying about something. Right. And that's
one's being artistic and entertaining, and the other one is being not conniving. What's the word I'm looking for? Ingenuine.
Disingenuous.
Sorry, thank you. So there's exactly that. Like, and it's super true, man. And it's crazy. Like, I mean, we've been to SHOT Show multiple times already now together, and we see it every year. Like, you see those dudes that walk around meme mugging, right? They meme mug everybody, and you're like, bro, you work for a t-shirt company. Like, calm down. Like, we're at a convention in Vegas. Like, just have fun. Have fun for like 5 fucking minutes and just stop being a fucking weirdo where you gotta like, show me how angry your face is and shit. So
trust me, if you crack a smile, your entire reputation for being a steely-eyed killer will be broken.
Apparently, right? But if you look at the actual steely-eyed killers, they're all giggling and like, pinching each other's nipples and shit. It's fucking hilarious. But you look at the dudes that are meme mugging and stuff, and like I didn't understand it at first when I first started in this world, and I was like, why are they looking at me like that? Does he want to, like, do I have a dick growing on my forehead? Like, what's going on?
Cue the Alex Jones meme.
Are you trying to have sex with me?
Yeah. But so I found it started getting annoying to the point of like what can I do about this thing? Like, how can I change the way that people are looking at me, at least, right? Because I can only affect that part. I can't like affect their brains for the most part. But what I ended up doing, and I don't know if I ever told you this or if you ever saw me do this while we were walking around SHOT Show, but I blow kisses at people that meme mug me. Blow them a kiss, dude. So and what it does is it usually disarms them a little bit, and they're like, wait a minute, look behind them, and like, what's going on? Why'd that dude blow me a kiss? Like, did he see somebody he knows? Like, it's very entertaining, especially because you keep walking and they never, or hopefully they never see you again, or they never ask or whatever. I haven't been asked about it, but every time somebody meet-mugs me at a show, an event, a convention, or whatever, dude, I just blow them a kiss, see what happens. Because like,
yeah, I mean, going to SHOT Show and showing ego is what it communicates to everybody is that you lack confidence or you lack something, right? Like, and it's ugly is all it is.
It's
right?
Just,
like
it's just something that people need to get past, man.
Yeah,
a little bit. It's not. It
makes you look like an amateur. Like, if you can't chill out, if you have to like, if you're like trying to establish dominance and you're like, oh, I remember when I first discovered the idea of like an alpha male, rah, and you're like, dude, like,
it's just like anything else. Like the premise I live my life by is that I know for a fact, right? There's got to be at least one dude out there in this world that is better at everything than I am. Better at anything, like anything I think of. Like there's a dude, obviously there's a dude that's better shooter, right? There's definitely a better dude that's a better teacher. There's definitely a dude that can definitely kill me, like with a goddamn pencil, right? There's a dude out there, guaranteed. But if I want to live my life thinking I'm that dude's going to eat me for lunch one day. Right. But if I continuously try to train or better myself or practice or, work on my physical fitness in a way that will prepare me for that day of that dude that's better than me, then I'm just trying to better myself. Right. I'm bettering myself over time. But if I think I'm that dude, then you stop trying to better yourself because you have nothing to look towards or be fearful of, if you want to call it fear. But there's nothing driving you anymore.
Napoleon was. I cut you off. This is my fault. Good. We'll blame the computer. Go.
But the way that kind of works, or in conjunction with that, is remember when we were first going through RIP, and like the instructors were like, you want to be gods amongst men, right? They were building that ego as we were already getting into it. And to the point that when we went to like dental appointments and we were walking down the sidewalk up to dental, like in our uniform or our pins and patches, we're the chamberets, and we're walking like we fucking own Fort Benning. Like we own the fucking place. Like that's how we would walk, because we had that, we were just alpha-y as in that manner. And we were so confident in ourselves. But what we didn't understand is that it didn't matter. Like there's probably a pogue that was looking at us and was like, oh, these guys are fucking douchebags. Like I can kill any of them with my skill level of whatever, but because of the organization we were in, it made us puff up our chests and all sorts of stuff, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. There's
anything,
there's something to be proud of yourself, but there's definitely that
but they boasted everybody's egos to make them feel like they were better than everybody else. And I think that's how you get people to stifle their training, right? Think about how many guys, like I only know of 2 dudes other than myself that went to classes outside the military on their own dime to go learn how to shoot. Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah. I only knew 2 other guys. And the only reason one of them went was because I forced him to come with me, because I knew it would better him. Because the first time I went, dude, I was like, man, I actually went to Frank Proctor, right? Like, cause he's a Green Beret. So it was a little bit more familiar. I was like, let me see what this outside training kind of thing is. Right. And just out of curiosity, cause I'm like, I'm a pretty good shooter. Then I got there and I was like, man, I suck terribly. Right. Did my first USPSA match. I got beat by a little old lady with a cigarette in her mouth, dude. Little old lady. No shit. She shot the stage.
A ranger beaten by a smoking grandma.
Dude, she had a cigarette in her mouth and she was just like, jacka, 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 jacka. And she was just fucking awesome. She just efficient and accurate. She couldn't even load her own gun. I'll tell you this, like local match. So somebody went up, they knew her because she's there every fucking week and a half. And she was like, somebody do me the favor. Right. And they load her gun for her, put it in her holster, you know, and then she sets up and she's like, meep. And then she goes through her stage. And dude, she beat me. She beat me.
Is this in Alabama?
Yeah, in East Alabama Gun Club.
The landed gentry. Somebody load this for me.
Yeah, but she was like, she wrecked me in the scoreboard or on the scoreboard in there. Now, that right there threw me for a loop. That took Ranger Duffy and was like, hey, bro, you suck. Like, how do we fix that? And what a really cool experience, because like, imagine like my brain at the time, you know, 19, 20-year-old me, and like, holy shit, there's more to shooting than just what I've learned from the Army by far. Yeah. Because now, I mean, now we know better, right? The Army was only giving us the lowest common denominator of training, right? What can they spew out in succession over and over out of a fucking binder, right? And there are still people that teach that way, but like, there's so much more to it, and there's so much more or better ways of explaining certain things that people will understand and actually caring about what they get out of it. But that's why I kind of joke around it. I joke about it, but I try to teach higher, right? Like a higher level of training, but only by using like the highest denominator of student, right? Like I want to teach you the way that I want to be taught. Like that's how my classes are. It's like, how would I want to learn this thing, right? And I would want to learn it if I were like coming to this class. I would want to learn it with all the information. I would want all this info so that I can make better decisions for myself. I would want to know how to self-diagnose so that I can better myself over time. So like you look at all these different things, and that's what literally took me from being ego Duffy, like fucking Ranger, right? To fucking, hey man.
Really good at that.
Like,
you're really good at that Ranger voice, by the way.
Right. You practice it all the time, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, you really got the rasp, the like, John Wayne.
Yeah. But you look at that and you're like, okay. And if you could dial that back for a minute and take off those blinders and like see the world for what it is, and really understand that you know very little, but you don't know that you know so little until you know a little, right? Like the whole, you don't know until you know. Like,
yeah. Dunning-Kruger plus naivety. I mean, I think it is a hardship of, it's a reality that you will run into people like, you'll run into people who are, they are case studies for the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's like, you run into it, but there is good news, is that some of those people will make it out. They will, right?
Yeah, and I take it as like an exciting challenge when I have one in class.
And you and me are proof of that. At least you are, and then I'm an egotist trying to say I am. No, you are, in the sense of, you didn't know that you knew nothing about shooting, even though you were Ragnar Strong, until you got beaten by a smoking grandma. And then it was like, oh,
smoke me, dude.
Yep. Okay. I will then, okay, cool. That's neat. I was saying earlier, Napoleon the Bonaparte was known for, whether it's apocryphal or not, one of his sayings, his quotes, was, the moment of victory is also the moment of the greatest danger, or something akin to this. Like, the moment of victory is when you're in the greatest danger of defeat. And there's a historical attitude to this, where during that time of warfare, if you in a pitched battle, if one side broke, and the line usually broke with less casualties than are depicted in Hollywood movies, the victorious line might pursue them, because in argument, or in theory, the greater amount of death occurs not when they're shooting at each other, but when one is running and one is shooting. But that during that you could say during that pursuit, if there's a break in discipline by the the temporary victors,
Mm-hmm.
if there's a break in discipline and a rally by the retreating line, it can very quickly turn what started as a defeat into a crushing, what started as a victory into a crushing defeat.
Yeah.
And crushing being technical, saying there is no recovery from it. And Napoleon and his influence in warfare at the time was every battle is an opportunity for crushing defeat. His objective was always to defeat his opponent so hard, so effectively that they couldn't rally. There was no rallying.
There was no rally.
But if you
that makes sense, because like you look at any ambush, right?
Mm-hmm.
To defeat an ambush is to ambush the ambush.
Yep.
Right? Like, and that's exactly what that is right there. So interesting.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Battle drill 1 alpha, redacted contact.
But the other thing too is like you look at at a victory, like when somebody's on their high, right? They're at an emotional high, right? In that positive land. And what ends up happening is when we start becoming more emotional, right? Our ability to process information and also output decisions and make proper decisions not in an emotional state is now hindered because we are in an emotional state. So when you look at like the dudes that I'm sure you remember, like it would be a troops in contact and he'd be saying it in the most calm manner. And it was probably a platoon sergeant that's on his like 13th fucking rotation. And he's like, all right, yeah, troops in contact from the east, whatever. Yeah. And that's how he kind of spoke on the radio. And you were like, how is he so calm? And
troops in contact 190 degrees, 300 meters, 3 men in the open.
Whatever it was, right?
One with an RPG.
What was cool about it, though, when you heard them say it that way, is like you can understand that his emotional level wasn't crazy high. It wasn't crazy low. It was fucking cruising, man. It was just chilling in the center in a more neutral state, which made him make decisions better, be able to speak on the radio better, all sorts of other things. And
it leveled out the platoon. If the platoon sergeant or the PL was at blah, 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 like then everyone just blah. It's
contagious.
Yeah, right.
So like that's one thing that you'll see is like recently we just had that one cop take a 184-yard shot on a dude, right? It was pretty awesome. He like shows up, puts his car in park, sets down his coffee, gets out of his car, opens up the trunk, sets up his rifle, and then posts up, and he's like, oh, there's the guy. Done. All right, let's go move up.
Yeah.
And that was it. And he's chill as hell, right?
And to everyone watching, it looks really relaxed, but I guarantee you, in his head, that time was like, he's probably sitting there going, right, just like, okay, cool.
He was just a cool cucumber, man. But that's the thing, though. His emotional control in that moment was so neutral and in control.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was so well put that he was able to make a nice far shot that most snipers never get to take, right? And
with the 5.56 rifle,
we did it with a red dot, man, and just like chilling. And what he gains from that is one, like, I mean, now he's a dang badass, right? But whatever. But what he gets out of that, though, is now he has full on emotional footage and experience in what he did that now will transfer to the next experience and the next experience, because that's what our experiences do. So he can now, I mean, realistically, like I'm curious to see what he's like if that dude was closer. I'm curious to see like what he would be doing if it was a hostage rescue problem. Like where would his emotional state end up, and how would he act on those things? Would he still be pretty dang calm, or like rise up a little bit, dig down a little bit? I'm sure he's probably like a super chill guy. Like, think about this. He may not even get upset. Like, if he gets into a car accident, he's probably one of those dudes like, all right, well, let me get out of the car. You okay? Yeah, no worries. It's just metal. Don't worry about it. It's just plastic and metal. I feel like he's like one of those dudes. I would love to talk to him, by the way. So if he's watching, like, please email me, dude. but just because I'd want to see what kind of human he is, because that reminds me of like that's a well-trained person for one, right? Just equipment alone, the equipment he was using alone just says that he pays attention to industry stuff and he doesn't just settle for the shenanigans he's issued, right? Like lowest common denominator equipment. Like he doesn't obviously settle for that. He had a $500 mount for his red dot, right? So what that tells me is that he actually puts in time, right? And he invests in him, which is cool. So that means that he's probably investing in his own training, which obviously shows that his training has helped him, one, be confident in making that shot, and two, kind of settle him down to be the efficient, calm, demeanored human being that he was in that moment. And I think that's the most important part of that whole entire video. I give two shits how far that dude was, but like the fact that he was that emotionally controlled, I think is the most impressive part of it, because that shows a level of maturity that a lot of people don't experience and also never get to, because they don't train enough to get to that point where they're that comfortable. So it's very interesting to see.
All right. Yeah. So you've presented over the last hour of this conversation a use case of challenge to the idea of like civilian versus military training, as well as competition having practicality in the real world. And these are, I think these are maybe controversies. We'll call them controversies for a placeholder. But that are more or less dying out, right? I think at this point in time, a certain sign of naivety would to be the statement that competition shooting has no value in the real world.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's what people say a lot. Yeah. But it is starting to diminish that idea for the most part.
Yeah.
Because people are starting to see that it's shooting.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between competition having value or no value in a violent encounter. There's a difference between that and saying that competition shooting is equivalent to a scenario.
Well, right. Right. Yeah, it's definitely a different thing.
Like
the context is different by far.
Yeah, this is like, I can use Call of Duty as a teaching point as a method of demonstrating a metaphor, demonstrating a concept or a method, right?
Mm-hmm.
Easiest case in point, anyone who's played Call of Duty, generally speaking, the person who has their red dot, their optics up first at the target is usually the victor, right? So when you're entering a room and you're in a scenario where time is quick, if you're entering with your rifle, you're sprinting and your rifle is down, and the other person is already has already anticipated your movement and they're already aiming down sights, you're entering that room with a disadvantage. So, you can see this in Call of Duty as a video game, but so that you can see that you can use that as a teaching point within a concept of trying to help somebody understand that when I'm entering a room or a doorway, I want to be moving at such a pace where I can acquire a sight picture if needed, but I also and I'm not moving so fast that I have to like change my rate of walking, running, whatever, and then I don't want to have to go from a sprint to aim down sight speed. I want to be able to go from here to here at a rate that's controlled enough where I can observe, orient, and act, as opposed to react, then observe, orient, and act. And that I can understand, like maybe in a video game concept, that's one way where it plays out in the game. But that doesn't say that the video game is the real world, right? Or I can say in competition shooting, one thing that you learn how to do in competition shooting really, really well that applies to the real world: changing a magazine, reloading your rifle, reloading your pistol, like being able to do that without thinking about it or looking at it. And where else you can't look at it? When it's dark out.
Let's back up for a second, right? So going back to reloads as a thing that you see in competitive shooting, that transfers over. It's not that competitive shooting teaches you that, right? That's something that you refine in your own practice after you know and learn how to actually reload a gun. It's where you get to test your ability to do it in an efficient manner under a certain amount of stress. And even if you pre-plan it, were you conscious enough to understand when to do that and act on that plan is another part of it too. So it's not that competition teaches you to do the reload at all and do them fast or whatever, because that's you practicing, like being right here, working on actual reloads, right? And figuring out what's the best method for you. But where it does, it gets to put you under the clock and with some stress of people watching, with the little bit of, your sympathetic nervous system starting to act on the fact that you're stressed because you're anxious about the competitive nature of the game, whatever it is. Excuse me. That's what's going to be a useful part for your reloads, right? Because if we reload on the range by ourselves, there's like no stress. Even if you had a timer and you're trying to like beat a time, still not stressful. But you put 15 other competitors right behind you, some dude with a timer and some guy that has a scoreboard, and they're all going to see your score and hear your score out loud because they're going to say it as they pass it, 2 alpha, fucking 2 delta, ew. Like, you're going to see all that.
Yeah, you
stress.
You can't fake the funk.
And then the self-induced stress that you put on yourself because you want to perform correctly, right? You want to do well. So I think that's where competitive shooting really brings to light a lot of things. Now, another correlation that I think is a really important one that people don't think about too much is that competitive shooting makes you perform on demand, right? Like, performance on demand is a thing, right? You don't get warm-ups in real life. You don't get to sit there and like, all right, let me draw on this, bad guy 14 times before the 15th time I actually shoot him. No, you don't get no draws prior. You don't get to warm up prior. Not to say you shouldn't, because there are things that you can do, but in the real life, your performance is demanded by Senor Badman, right? And he demands your performance. You must perform. Your performance will kind of come out to the way you come out, right? Based off your training, because they say you fall back on your level of training, but realistically, what you do is you fall back on your level of subconscious competence, because your conscious competence is trying to solve a problem in front of you, right? Put that into fucking
which once again separates people on the basis of integrity. Do you have the integrity to do the work when no one's looking?
Right. And performance on demand shows that. Now, then you go to competitive shooting, and every stage is a cold run. It's a performance on demand run. You don't get to run it 3 times live and then go and like, all right, I got this. Now put me on the clock. It's like, hey, the first time you do it live is the time that you get, and that's the score you get. And then they write that shit down, and that's your score for the day, right? Like, that is what it is. And now you're being rated between the 150 people that are there or whatever. So the performance on demand aspect of being able to perform when your performance is being demanded by somebody else, especially in an exercise that somebody else set up and you didn't set it up, you're not doing something that you're comfortable with yet, right? Hopefully, or maybe it is because you compete a lot. That's awesome. But it's something that is fresh, right? And I think people like they take it too far. They're like, well, I would never fight 18 dudes. I don't get attacked by cardboard either, man. Like, who gives a fuck? It's a game. It's like going to play basketball. Like, you don't kick the basketball. Well, some of us do for fun, but you play a game of basketball with all the dudes at the gym. Guess what? You play by the rules. That's it. Right? But if you go play street ball with a bunch of fucking dudes you don't know and you don't care about their lives and shit, like, you could just break the fucking rules and just fucking do whatever you want. Right? That's life. So, like, you look at it and it's literally just the rules you want to play by.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
if you got to play
games
by
require
Geneva
rules.
Conventions or you got to play by USPSA rules, it's same thing, just different rules. You got to follow the rules.
You do well.
Not always, but
Huh?
you
Yeah.
choose to follow the rules. Let me say it that way.
Applying the Geneva Convention to USPSA is both comical and like, well, I mean, you know, so you could argue that they're both corrupt, but that's not the point. It's just funny. It's like I have never
premise of rules.
Yeah, I have never in my life heard somebody compare a state's like a competition format compared to international law when it comes to the use of weapons in war. But hey,
the use of force. Yeah.
Well,
it's the same thing. USPSA states how you are allowed to use force against those papers.
Yeah. Well, you could even there's a book, Play Anything, by I forget his name, where he talks about what a game is it's a set of rules that a game is simply a set of rules kind of thing. Like you look at that constrain the amount of options that you have to do. I don't want to.
Try to win the game.
Yeah. You try to win the game. You know, like if you're playing a game of chess and somebody starts pulling out checker pieces and doing different things, you're not playing chess anymore.
Yeah, it's like when your little brother is the bank in Monopoly and he's stealing all the fucking 500s. Cheater.
Well,
right, but at the same time,
somebody doesn't have a little brother anymore. He went to go work for the Federal Reserve.
He's an IRS agent now.
You're dead to me.
No, but realistically speaking, like it's whatever rules you want to follow, you play by the rules. It's like, I mean, I'm sure you were a kid and you had friends. Hopefully, right? Did you have friends?
I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled, so no. Actually, I grew up in a mud hut. If you want to know it's based on a true story book. It's Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie. I'm being facetious. I grew up. Yes, I have friends.
Like you had friends, right? So you guys made up your own games sometimes.
Yep, we did.
Like I know, like we made up our own way of playing Monopoly. We made up our own way of playing, basketball with our own rules.
Yeah,
right? Based off of the constraints we had of our court/driveway.
I had a friend who him and I were both into Legos, and then we had our own version. Like those tabletop games, like you got Warhammer
like and stuff.
Well, one of them's like the Warhammer series, and then there's similar versions of that where you got to like collect all these armies and paint them, and then like go in public and bring your $700 or $2,000 collection of painted figures and go beat somebody else's painted figures, which like in theory it actually sounds really fun. It's just the
like D&D with actual little characters.
I don't know, because I my experience with D&D is pretty small, although it's trendy, so maybe we should start tactical D&D. Please don't.
It's actually super fun. My alumni do it. There's an alumni group that has their own D&D game that they play, and I've played with them online. Because D&D's online, so you don't have to be in person with peeps.
Fair enough. And then there's this thing called Black Powder Red Earth, and they've got little miniatures of dudes with like rifles with suppressors and nods and all this
stuff. Yeah, they're all kitted out. It's a cool comic, apparently.
Oh yeah, I've seen one of the comics, and I ended up picking up a thing of the models just because it's like, oh, you know what, that would be kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, and if anything else, support the boys, right?
Yeah,
and culture building,
anything,
and so
just do what you want to do in life.
Yeah, well, to an extent, there are rules, but
only if you follow them. Geneva Conventions, USPSA.
Are you an anarchist?
So. I just don't care if it says no U-turn, and I don't see anybody that's gonna, stifle me from doing a U-turn or give me a
Southern boys
doing it.
My grandfather was a Southern boy, and you guys all have the same motto: it ain't illegal if you don't get caught. And it's like
essentially, but no, it's mostly like little things like that. Like it says no left turn, but like I can get across that road.
Yeah,
like no cop, constable, sheriff. I got it. All right. But it's Florida man style, dude. Like whatever's available, like I can do it. Like hold my beer kind of stuff. But
Well, you're driving a car, so I hope it's not hold my beer.
Well, in that context, no. But like overall,
We'll just go straight to Crown.
It's actually, I mean, if you remember, like I don't even drink actually, but
I did not know
like,
that.
I thought we talked about that at SHOT Show.
But you might have.
It's because I couldn't afford ammo when I was in the Army if I drank. Think about how poor we were because we got paid, dog shit to go do really bad shit, right? And
we were not paid well, and for the compensation for the work done was not okay. However, we did nothing to help it out, right? It's like your house is paid for. Technically, most of your food is paid for. And you're like, oh yeah, I get paid less than a McDonald's worker. Yeah, but the McDonald's worker has to pay rent and lodging,
they got bills,
and bills, and you're like, you have to pay for your internet bill because
but we also are just like we're considered property.
This is also true. Yeah,
where they're considered employees.
Yeah. You cannot demand a wage increase or a cost of living adjustment because the economy's bad, or you can't
demand anything.
Well, you can. It's just super. You can. It's just super ineffective. Like, oh, I want this. Bummer,
But yeah. So I couldn't afford if I wanted to drink with the boys on the weekend, right? Like, and go out downtown Columbus, and I couldn't afford to do that and shoot as much as I wanted to shoot. So I opted for buying ammo over drinking, and I nixed drinking off my docket, and I actually just DD'd a lot and still got to hang out with my friends. I didn't drink.
Well, that was probably better for you in the long run.
Yeah,
we'll just go with that one.
It was a mature choice. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Overall, like, man, it was. I think it ended up well because all I got to do is refine skill and get better. And that was after the old lady incident where she fucking wrecked me. So, for me personally, that was a good turning point in my life. Like, ego is not your amigo, like Chuck Pressburger likes to say, and I think it's 100% true. And it's not until somebody shows you where you're at in your ego or in your status with whatever you're doing that your eyes are open to the whole shenanigans that you're missing out on because you had your eyes closed at the first time. So I think it's interesting, man. I think it's kind of cool how that all worked out. But yeah, that's why I never ended up getting back into drinking too. It's like I could save that money for something else.
Having a mission in a direction does quite a bit for you in that arena. I think. Passion. I mean, passion. Yeah, I can imagine. As veterans, we encounter stories of others like us who didn't find a path and ended up taking their life, or it's like that, and it's a. I don't want to patronize the subject too much. It's one of those that's always frustrated me. Well, not me. It's always frustrated. I think so many of us. It's like you kind of feel so helpless to address the subject.
I mean, it's a mixture, right? Like you want to because to bring light to the subject because we need more of it being known, but you don't want to because it's like. It's taboo to an extent because now, like, you're talking about people like committing suicide. And that
like, I don't think it's taboo in the sense of like we don't want to talk about it. I think the reason why it's taboo is because for probably a plane overhead, whatever. But for better or for worse, I remember in like the 2015-16 time range where it was starting to come out where it was like, there's 40,000 veteran-based charities, and we're still dealing with 22 a day. And it's like, and there's something we're saying is that perhaps the fact that there were 40,000 charities was keeping the number that low. That's an evaluation that can be made. I'm not saying that's a low number, but there is something to be said that like, maybe the fact that it could
be worse,
it could be worse. And then there is an argument to that one. And I think, sometimes veterans, myself would be included, would say, um, there was, there, I can think of a time where if you had said what you just said, that you're like, oh, well, when I was in the Rangers, or when I was in the military, I didn't drink and I didn't spend money drinking so I could afford ammunition. And I could sit here as a veteran, and I've been out for 6 or 7 years now, and I hear you say that, and I go, well, it's too late for me to make a change. Because I drank in the military, and then I got out of the military, and I became an alcoholic, or whatever, right? And that's an interest. That's I think someone could hear that and take it
correctly.
I'm not saying take it incorrectly. I'm saying that I want to make sure that I'm not saying take it incorrectly. I think that they could look at it and go, oh, they could become extremely disheartened by it because they see that somebody else made the right decision and they did not make what they're understanding as the right decision. And that becomes a cascading wave of anxiety and depression that continues to push them towards the destructive lifestyle.
Gotcha.
Or decisions. And
it also brings into light like it's free will, man.
Yeah, and free will can be a frightening thing, because sometimes you come to a better understanding of your free will by the horrible decisions you've made. But I think part of the one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I appreciated, I wanted you on the part of this conversation, was just how I think that I don't want to say that the tides are changing as an easy way of saying it, but one thing that I have appreciated about gun culture is that it's becoming more. I think we're restoring integrity by the inches, into a culture that has produced a fair amount of reasonable that has produced a fair amount of reason for skepticism, whether it's from manufacturers, instructors, celebrities, or whatever, right? You can say it that way, but when it comes to you and I having this conversation as veterans, I mean, we do share a history. We do share a history. We're a little bit. We have some advantage of time between us. Mm-hmm. I think that there's grounds to say, look, if you're waking up today and going, I'm that guy, and it's not, and the scenario is different, right? Whether it's veterans or not, like the reality is, this culture is not as dark as you think it is. We are here, like, and sometimes we don't know what to do. Sometimes if you came to me tomorrow and said my life is in ruins, it's like, I wouldn't know what to do, but like, cool, we'll figure it out. That is a reality that will never get recognition, and I'm okay with that, but it's there.
Okay.
It'll never get recognition because it's not there for the recognition. But there are people in this culture who, if you reach out to, whether you know them or don't, will be like, they may not be able to, they may not be a therapist, but we're here for each other, man. We have to be.
Yeah, they may not be able to solve the problem, but they can hang out with you and at least soothe the problem.
Yeah, as long as you don't become disingenuous and take advantage of people, like that's the only caveat. Like, don't fake depression in order to gain attention. Like, just because we don't. Well, stolen valor is the perfect example of that. Like, I lost my arm in the big war, and it's like, no, you didn't. You were in a car accident because you were driving drunk, and now nobody likes you. So go away.
Yeah, Sergeant Major Captain.
Yeah, Sergeant Major Captain. Well, yeah, but people who get that many ranks messed up usually are dealing with something much worse than stolen valor. But I am going to kind of hard segue here because there are a couple things I wanted to ask you about before, or just kind of break into.
What's up?
Before we roll out. One of them is that, like, so you've designed some of your own gear, right? Mm-hmm. You've got tie down systems for night vision onto helmets, and a couple of other things. I am newer in that I personally am newer into the R&D side for the sake of production, right? Like I've been able to R&D so I've been able to research or test out I've been a lot on the T&E side of the R&D world. But so, and you have been on both ends, I'm assuming. I mean, of course, right? So you started with how did you go from idea to delivery, and what did that look like on your learning process?
Well, it kind of differs based off the thing that you're trying to make.
Okay.
Right? But let's start with like the nerd, right? Which is my night vision elastic retention device.
Okay.
And it's not crazy. It's not like some elaborate design or anything like that, but it stemmed from, and actually I have it right here. It stemmed from me making this long ago in the military, because the Wilcox one that looks kind of like janitor keys, it broke one time, and I'm sorry, it didn't break. The mount released my night vision because it has like a quick release just in case you run into shit, right? And it broke off and whacked me right in the face, right? Because those janitor keys hang from over here, so it just went right there.
Okay, yeah, that explains so much. That's why your eyebrows are crooked, right?
Dude, for sure, and it's probably why my lips are so fat. But so I made this, and I put 550 cord through it and tied down my night vision with it, so that even if my quick release my breakaway feature on the mount came apart, it would at least hold my night vision above my head, not down by my chin where it could swing and smack me. So it was super simple, and like I used like extra like little stitching out of my sew kit that it was a color that we weren't going to use for like uniform stuff or anything. So I was like, fuck it, let me see what it does. And it worked out really well. So from there, it just became like, how do I want to do it? How do I want to get this sewn? What kind of stitch patterns we want to use. And then finding somebody that would actually make it for me. Right. And the buddy of mine that owns a company, Flatline Fiber Co., they make slings, they do nylon gear, and it was an easy like, hey dude, is this in your wheelhouse to like actually produce? And he was like, yeah, I can make you some of these. And then from there it became, well, how do we refine the process to making them, because they're selling, so to make it more efficient, and it just became like easy from there. Now, the testing side of things, I had one I used this one for years prior, and then I started using a more refined version that he made me, and I had it for like 8 or 9 months of use, teaching and taking classes myself, or just walking around, driving on boats, going on quads, flying on aircraft with night vision on, and then realizing this thing is it's doing its job. It didn't fall off. I didn't lose my night vision. My night vision didn't hit me in the freaking mouth. Like, I'm good. So over that course of time, I had also handed out, I don't know, maybe 25 of them to different friends and different dudes that use night vision on a regular basis, that work, or they're also teachers. So that I can get a larger sample size, because my one could work, but number 2 doesn't. So I think the R&D process, and then the T&E process, I think they should be one and the same per se. I know there are like distinctions between them, but like linking them at some point, and also realizing that you need large sample sizes based off what you're making, so that you can confirm that you don't have just a one-off. And that's important. And the time and money that you spend into it, obviously you have to get that back somehow in some way, but I think people are like really greedy out there, and that's one thing you try not to be too greedy with something like that. And the other thing I think too is people need funding for their R&D and their T&E process, and people pre-order or put out pre-orders for things to try and support that. But the problem is, like, what if at the end the product doesn't end up being viable, and you just took all this money, and that's when you see like these, once again, disingenuous and morally corrupt humans leave and run off with people's money. So I'm not a big fan of like pre-orders. Like, people are always like, well, can I just buy one, and then when they're in stock, you can just send it to me? I'm like, no, because I don't want your money until like I earn your money, right? So,
Okay.
So it's one of those kind of things for me. But yeah, it's not a crazy process, realistically. Like, not for smaller products. I'm sure for something way more elaborate, it's definitely like more things. But once you find somebody you trust enough to like make it, it's obviously like a contractual thing. You make sure you do a proper contract, and then go from there, man. But it's kind of cool. But I also have a weird brain, so like some of these little products I come out with are from like the middle of the night staring at my fan, and I'm like, that would be kind of cool. I wonder if that would work. So
yeah, so like we had Villain Weapon Systems on last week, so they'll be on I think the show before yours. And Villain, he makes diffusers and focusing lenses for PEC 15s at PLCs and D-ball D squared D2s, whatever.
D2s, yeah,
D2s.
The big illuminator one.
Yeah, the chalk, and the I'm referring to as the Cheems. The Cheems of the internet Cheems of the
pretty
laser
much the VHS like cassette player thing.
Like it works, it's there, it's reliable, but it's a boy.
It's big. It's pretty much like putting a projector on the front of your hand.
Does it have the whirring noise? I have seen one before. They don't, but
I think they do.
But they work, right? Like they
cooling. Actually, the D2 is a great laser. So
yeah, like they work. They work. So, but he was bringing that up in a sense of like figuring out how to manufacture a thing is not it's not an easy task, but you can do it.
It's not impossible. I think people fear the unknown a lot, right? Right? Like we fear the unknown. We fear darkness. That's why we made night vision. We fear the depth of the ocean because it's so dark down there. We don't know what the fuck's down there. So we fear it, and we fear space because it's so deep and dark and scary and stuff.
And consuming.
Like because people fear the unknown so much, and I think that's a normal fear. They're not willing to take a chance on like something new that they're coming out with or they think of. But like, I don't know. I think there's room for everybody, realistically speaking. And if you have an idea that you think is viable and you've tested and you think you can actually, provide a service or like actually help in any industry, really. If you could help them or make it better, like I don't see why not when it comes to product stuff or developing a new product. It's when you're just copying other people's shit. That's a whole nother monster, right? Like that's just you trying to make a buck and ride the coattails of somebody else's popularity in the way that their product came out and what they're doing. So
yeah, it's not always the case, but it's almost as if there's something out there that once again measures you, and if you're found wanting in the realm of what you're producing, it oftentimes comes back to kids. I know Jordan Peterson's talked about it before, and unfortunately, I reference him too much. But it's like he says, I've never seen anybody get away with anything in my life. It's like, yeah, well, it's true, I guess. I'm not old enough to say it with absolute certainty, but it seems to be consistent at this point in time. And yeah. I mean, I think the cynicism that so many manufacturers are not met with, but like the purchaser presents most manufacturers could be tempered a little. I think it could be tempered a little, but like there's definitely some challenges that can be found where it's like
it kind of depends too, though, like because like some people put out shit things and it needs to be like known that it's trash.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I'm
But
sorry, but your whatever it is not the same.
yeah,
It's not, your steel plates are not just as good as as ceramics or
right.
composites or whatever.
Your
Like,
cool guy marketing terms don't work, right? Or
yeah, I mean, they
you're
do
actually
work,
doing a
but
disservice.
like
Um,
they work at the cost of something, though.
right,
So
and potentially somebody's life, depending on what you're doing.
yeah. I mean, snake oil salesmen have always been around.
Yeah,
So but but approaching everything with the cynicism that assumes everything is out to get you and every product is out to steal you hat in hand, and it's like, you're not going to make it, man. You're
no,
not going to get very
you're only
far.
going to hurt yourself in the long run.
Yeah, there has to be you have to find some place for trust and understanding that there will be issues where you'll get burned. It will happen. But
Well, you know where most of these products that are successful come from is using things, right?
yeah,
Like experiencing things and needing something, right? The necessity, or what is it? Necessity is the whatever of invention or whatever it is.
necessity is the mother of invention.
Thank you. So I'm not good with these quote things.
I'm good at nothing but these quote things. Everything else I'm useless at.
I'm so good at nothing but quotes.
Yeah,
That's
C zones only, except for when it comes to quotes.
but when it like I think those usually are, if not most of the time, like 99% of the time, the coolest, best inventions are usually based off of some kind of need, right? Like hey, I needed this, so I designed it and I made it happen, and now we all can enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of cool, but people don't realize what they need until they experience something. So like,
oftentimes,
I mean, we kind of talked about it offline a little bit. Like, we're kind of tired of the whole barrel discussion. Like, do I need a 12.5 or should I get an 11.5? I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, both of them are going to shoot relatively the same.
There's money to be spent. Yeah. You're spending money. And so you might want to know, there are a couple of things. And unfortunately, the decision-making process is not simple, but...
Well, here's what people have started doing. Instead of making their own decisions, they have started to revert to having somebody validate what they want before they make that decision, or have them make the decision for them. So, for example, the questions that come up every week is, what's the best this? What's the best that? And what people don't realize is there is no best of anything realistically. Like, there may be a best for you because of your circumstances, your needs, your environment, your situation, whatever, but it doesn't mean it's the best for me. And it may not be whatever is the best for me isn't the best for you. Yeah. So,
we know that best is the concept of what is the best X is always going to be bound to, in reference to what. It's always going to be bound in a relative to task A, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can I think at some point in time, I think many of us have become absolutely exhausted by this, because it's like, yeah, I'm not going to take, can you hit a target at 500 yards with a Mark 18? Yes. Should you? Probably not. Okay. Probably not. There are better options out there, right?
Yeah.
Now, and at some point in time, you got to you start to recognize that this conversation grows infinitely with more context, which is where you get the what if game, right? Oh, well, what's the best AR-15? Daniel Defense Mark 18. Okay, well, what happens if I'm in the mountains? Okay, SR-25. Well, what happens if I don't have $7,000? Okay, then a Ruger precision rifle and a and what if I can only carry one gun? And it's like, I get it. You can trail that, you can follow that trail for so long, and I think where it becomes disingenuous is where I have already made up in my mind what I want. I want a SIG MCX spear light or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you're like, and so I go, hey,
you're trying to lead me there by asking.
I'm trying to lead you there, and I've already put a down payment on it or not, and you're like, well, if you're getting into night vision, I'd look at a 14.5 or a 13.7 pinned and welded BCM with a, so it's technically a 16-inch barrel with it, but then I would put an adjustable gas block on it or something. Well, can you even do that? No, you can't.
You could do it. You put one on there if you want. Not if it's pinned already, but
not if it's pinned already. But you get my point, right? Like, so like you'd say that, and then I'd be like, yeah, but what if I want like a piston system, and then like I'm trying to get you to justify my own purchases, and that does happen. And maybe that might actually be my own like cynicism now, because it's when somebody asks me,
it's a normal thing. Like, hey, should I get a Surefire can? I'm like, no, I don't like Surefire cans. They're like, oh damn, I already bought one. Why'd you ask me?
Yeah, yeah. Like, oh damn, I already bought one. Yeah, ask before you purchase.
Well, it's just like anything else. Like people want validation in what they do, and what they don't realize, and what I tell a lot of people is like, you don't know what you need until you experience the need. So go train, go learn things, go practice. And what's funny is that as you do more of those and more of that, you will slowly veer towards what you're looking for that's needed for you, right? Yeah. Because you gain more experience, which means you gained more knowledge, hopefully. And then with that, you gained the understanding of the overall picture of what your needs are. And now you can know, right? You literally know what you need. So that's why when people ask me like, oh, why are you using that? Why are you using this? It's like, because it fits my needs. It's what I want to use. It's literally, I choose to use it because I wanna. And I don't know. I think, people want they want that validation, but they just don't want to make a choice too. The indecisiveness of people, and they don't want to be blamed for making the financial mistake of buying something the wrong way.
But there is also the reality that we go to other people for advice. Like there are certain things. If I'm going to build a bolt action, if I'm going to build a precision bolt action rifle, I am going to go to somebody else and I'm going to ask them, and I will probably do everything that they tell me to do. Right.
But here's the thing: you're going to go to them and you're going to have a list of the reasons why you want a bolt action rifle, where you're going to use it, why you're going to use it, because I'm
going to give them criteria. They're going to give me an answer.
Right. Because then they can narrow it for you and help you choose options based off of them being a subject matter expert or whatever. But if you go like, I just want a bolt action rifle, like there's a lot of reasons for a bolt action rifle. And
John, justify a fix by Q, right?
Exactly. And okay, so that means you just want to play around. Like, cool. Like then you can buy whatever to play around with. But if you want to go hunting and you want to go backpacking in Washington, like, dude, you need a lightweight rifle to an extent. You need a certain caliber to an extent. You need a certain amount of magnification and skill to shoot this thing to a certain extent. And let alone the endurance to backpack through there and do the thingies and not die. So there are dudes that are suited for explaining that, because, hey, I want to go on a backpack, or I want to go backcountry hunting and I want to shoot an elk. All right, cool. Here's some options that you have to make a choice on this bolt action rifle now, because it's understanding what your context is and what you're planning on doing with it. But people come to you with no context and no understanding of the circumstances to use it, then it makes it harder for you to make it and help them make a decision. Because even if I gave you all the circumstances and context and situations and the environment I'm going to play with, there are still options available, but now we've narrowed them. So it makes it a lot easier to make a choice. But it just depends. If you say home defense, it's like that's too broad still.
Like, you can narrow it down. And I know this is definitely not a short conversation, and I'm sure we'll have more of it over time. But it is one of those things.
Probably
3 more episodes just to uncover the nuances of gear selection within the industry. So without trying to sound too patronizing, one thing that I've appreciated about your YouTube channel is that and this is where I'd want you to, give you some opportunity to make some suggestions here, is I have gone to your I have used your channel to help me make evaluations on certain gear purchases, right? Or it's like, oh, one of them that I have enjoyed, and I gotta thank you for doing this, is some of the stuff that you present is not for the new guy, right? It's somebody who's got night vision, been using night vision for a little while, and serves as a testimony to the era that we're in of the small manufacturer, where you're like, oh, this little thing solved this little problem that made this thing less of an issue. And right, whether it's a tie down for a set of night vision, or I think you had a video once on I'm using a T1 micro, right? And the blessing and curse of the T1 micro are the caps, right? Now you talked about, you introduced you have caps on your T1.
Forward controls makes that little cap.
Okay.
Right. And that little cap can now replace that stupid aim point cap to give you the ability to adjust your optic on the fly with a piece of brass or a flathead screwdriver or whatever.
Okay.
Your teeth. Not suggested.
Not suggested. No. So what, if you take a guy who's got night vision, he's got a laser. He's got the first two things down. He's got the laser illuminator and the night vision and a taller mount so he can shoot passive. What advice do you have for the person who's kind of gotten over the hump of introduction to night vision? Maybe they've taken one class. Well, let's just rule out, assuming if you have a set of night vision and you've got a laser, one of the first things you should do is take a night vision class. You really should. But if a person's knocked out these three basics, right? What recommendations, whether it's a gear or something else, do you have for that guy or gal?
Well, for one, you didn't say he had a light on his rifle, so. But no, I mean, it realistically speaking, everything you want to practice with night vision or rifles, you could do dry. So what I suggest is figure out a good dry practice routine that you could use and you can do on a regular basis so that, one, your night vision is getting utilized so you get comfy under your night vision a little bit more. Two, so you start feeling out how presenting a laser feels compared to presenting an optic. And then also you start working on little things like learning how to reload in the dark. Right? Learning how to move and shoot in the dark, like little stuff that's not horribly hard in any way if you already know how to move and shoot in the daytime, but it is different slightly because you can't see the ground as easily. So you do have to scan a little bit more. So there is the need for understanding how to live under 40 degrees of view or field of view so that you can work around the world that you're in without all this peripheral vision that we already have. So that's what I would say is you need to practice more, right? You need to continue your practice. Whatever you learned in the class, you can work on that. Whatever you sucked at in the class, you really need to work on in dry practice and then live practice. But if you went to a class already, you learned all the little stuff. Now we got to refine the stuff, if that makes sense. You learn to make the canoe and we cut that bitch out. Right. But now we got to make it into the right shape. We got to smooth it out. We got to varnish that bad boy. We got to, put some kind of coating on it so it doesn't fucking, just sink. And then we need to make that bad boy work for us. Right. And you got to get the paddles and the right stuff so you can canoe.
So if I'm getting ready for a shooting competition, my dry fire routine is going to be, diminished IPSC targets on the wall, in a, clear, no ammunition, or at most using something like a laser device. There you go. What am I looking at? I didn't see.
Sorry. I forget. It's a little blurry for you, but those.
Oh, I see them. There they are.
Targets.
Yep. So whether you're using like a laser aiming option, like so if I'm getting ready for a competition, I'm dry firing, practicing draw, reload, target acquisition, target transitions, right? Pretty straight, like those are the four things that I want, so that when I'm on the stage, I'm only thinking about timing, not mechanics. If I'm doing that for night vision, however, I can do draw, reload, target acquisition, target transition, but there's you listed a whole lot more. You listed walking. So go for a hike in your biome. I remember everyone. I think every team leader, every ranger and every team leader remembers the first time they did a walk in the woods.
Yeah,
I knew a guy who knocked himself out because he ran into a tree so hard. Bonk, just cold.
Did you guys do the Darby Trail?
Yes. Oh yes, my ankles, my shins still feel that.
What was that? I don't know, but it hurt.
Yeah, rock, tree, root, badger. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was there. No,
other ranger.
Other ranger. Yeah,
you left me here.
Take me home. No, ew. Yeah. The dark. Oh my gosh! But you know what? As much as that was miserable back then, I think there's a certain part of me that would kill to do it again today.
Yeah, it would be fun now because it's not important to do.
Yeah, like no one's yelling at me, and B, I know I don't have a 1 mile Skedco drag at the end of it. So there's that.
And you know for a fact at the end you could just be like, all right, that was awesome, Gatorade. Let me do it again.
Yeah. There's awesome Gatorade and a Natty Light. And then just do it again. You're like, oh gosh. But no, yep. So go for a hike in your biome is a big one because you learn to walk different. There's no way around it, right?
Do normal people things like start the laundry, go like fry an egg, make some pancakes, like clean the kitchen, like do shit that's like as normal human being things are. Shut the lights off, do it under nods. See what that's like.
Write a resume. Write a resume under nods.
You could try. That's going to be real hard, but you could do it.
Yeah, please don't.
Especially because resumes are hard for people to write in the first place.
Yeah, well, writing is hard in the first place.
Use a template. I don't know why people struggle so much.
Is good at jumping. No, for sure.
Can run 7-minute mile.
Sir, this is a bank.
Yeah. But I can run, man. It's one of my skills, my special skills. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, once you've got the night vision once you've got the night vision, the laser, maybe a class under your belt, like the easiest thing to do is patience and time. I'm not the easiest thing. The hardest thing, but most necessary thing is patience and time. Mm-hmm. So this is what you're saying. Like,
yeah, you gotta put in the work. Like just because you take a class and you get a certificate doesn't mean you know.
Well, I think there's less of those people than we make a point of, right? Like
because there are a lot of them still in the professional realm. Right?
Yeah, but I don't care about them. Like just like I don't care about the guy who's got like, I've got 30 NRA certifications. It's like, cool, I know I'm better than you at basically everything. Right? Like not to be a total dickhead about it, but it's like
okay, Globo Jim. We're better than you. We know it.
Yeah, right. But but you get my point, right? Like if your entire ego is based on your certifications, like no one should take you seriously. And the reality is not many people really do. And you probably know that the people who take you seriously are not people you respect. Like, and that we can move past that. I think we just should be done with this kind of thing, right? Like we can really move past it.
You'd hope so. But
no, there are people. There are people who will always be like eye-rollingly painful, right? But it's like it's the one thing that I have to recognize. I criticize is like if you build your entire ego, your entire persona in this culture on ragging on other people, you have a short lifespan and you don't really contribute anything. Mm-hmm. That means I need to make sure that I can reflect on myself and say, oh, am I just doing that on a meta level? And I think that, the timeline of there will always be people who are inauthentic, disingenuous, and rely on subpar credentials to try to push them through something. I don't think we need to focus on that as much as we try to.
Take that differently though, right? Because that's a version of it, but like on the professional level too is like some law enforcement instructors, and there's probably law enforcement dudes listening to this that they shouldn't be instructors. Like they went to the LE law enforcement class that teaches them to instruct other LE dudes, and all they're doing is reading out of a binder and teaching most likely the lowest common denominator of shit. It's like recruiters. I mean, I'm sorry, not recruiters, like drill sergeants. Not every drill sergeant should have been a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
You know, like some of them are lazy fucks that can't explain things to you, right? Like anything in that realm, those should be spots filled by dudes that are passionate about something, know how to teach or are taught to teach, and can convey their information. If you don't know like how to teach somebody something, then like you really shouldn't take that spot up or that location. But because they went to that school, they got that cert. Now they know, and now their department relies on them to teach everybody else, and they're already a subpar shooter.
Yeah.
So you could just imagine like how that progresses further. And then that guy's been there for 15 years, has never taken any other classes. So now he's living in dogma land, right? Where he's like, I am the king of my hill, and that's it. And then and he'll never progress as a shooter himself, but he never progresses anybody else. And then he puts out bad information. Like, oh, you only need 200 lumens for that light. Don't get any more. You'll blind yourself. It's like, no. Like, I haven't blinded myself, and I got a fucking light that looks like a laser, and it is a laser technically, right?
You got, yeah. What is it? Was it Adaball? Adaball's like,
yeah. So like the grand scheme of things is like they're putting out bad information that is based on like who knows what. I call it tactical telephone. Like one guy was like, oh, you can't use 200 lumens, or let's say the beginning of the tactical telephone. Oh man, I just flashed myself in the face with that light. It reflected off that mirror. That was bright. I almost blinded myself, or I was blind for a second. The next guy that got told that, he was like, oh man, Billy, he blinded himself with a 200 lumen light. And then the next guy's like, hey, don't use 200 lumen lights. You'll blind yourself. The last guy's like, hey, you never go over 200 lumens. Like, yeah, you don't want to get blinded, do you? Like, then you won't be able to fight. And like, it just keeps tactical telephoning down until you get to the guy that you're at now. And this guy's giving these new officers that light, too strong, man. That's too strong. You need 200 lumens or less, right? Like, that's the bullshit that still goes on every fucking day. And there's some dude out there that maybe listen to this. It's like, they told me that, you know, and like, no, it's all of us have heard it. And you just got to get past it by one, gaining more knowledge and going out there and seeing if that fucking blinds you for real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, it's Anti-Fragile by Taleb, which is outside of the frame, where he talks about the individuals, like the whole benefits at the cost of the individuals. I think Anti-Fragile by Taleb and Skin in the Game by Taleb are two, like, he's more of an economist, but are two, I think, necessary reading books for anyone who's in instruction, who's in this culture as well, because Anti-Fragile focuses on the purpose of decentralization. So like, you know, innovation comes in degrees, rarely in leagues. It's like, right. And so, you know, and it oftentimes comes at the cost of the individuals. So you might, you know, his argument being a lot of our most great invention comes from tinkerers, not scientists. Mm-hmm. And you might have 20 tinkerers and one of them will, you know, whatever. And so one of them will come up with something and 19 of them will die. But as a whole, the next group will have one step better. This might be an evolution. This might be in different economic models. He makes this argument. And I think if you look at gun culture as a whole and you zoom out, and this is where I am an optimist, is that though you will find plenty of strains like this, where the 200 lumens guy or the 1911 only guy, while in the microcosm, you'll see all of these little pieces where you're like, oh, that strain will have, but that strain will eventually die out, and it will die out when it faces reality, right? And just like we don't really argue 9mm versus 45 anymore, like we really don't, because
somebody does, but yeah,
somebody does, and it's entertaining, but like, you get my point here, right? Is that
I see what you mean, yeah.
You know, like the culture itself advances slowly over time, at the cost of all these little strains that try different things, and some of them live and some of them don't, and some of them live long past their years. And yeah, there are negative parts to it, but that comes back down to integrity with the instructors. And I think, like you've always helped, I think struck in me in this one subject and how we have these conversations and just talking about things you've learned and where you've been. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show, man. So it's kind of like I said, I don't want to be too patronizing and sound like I'm just your fanboy, but I am your biggest fan.
Thanks, buddy.
So, thanks, buddy.
You got to support the bros.
Yeah, well, no, we do. We really do take care of each other. So, yeah. Sure. Well, thanks. Thanks so much for adding. I
wrote them down so I can check them out later. See if they're on Audible.
They are. Skin in the Game is a really good one for any form of leadership. I would say it should be necessary reading for military leadership. It's the one thing that I go, I wish
you may like to, if you haven't read it, With Winning in Mind.
I have not. I'm going to add that to my list.
It's a really good one on mindset stuff. It's an Olympic shooter who goes through his process of learning, and then also explains how he goes through the mental mindset of like a winner, like how that works. And it could be used in any context, but he portrays it in himself and what he talks about with other Olympians. So in a more Olympic setting, but really cool book. Very interesting. If you get it on Audible, the guy is very boring and monotone, but it's not a bad read. It's not a big book either.
Okay, yeah, I can put up with the monotone, and I can put if the content. I had a professor in college who was like extremely dry, but that was the best part about him because the content was king.
Yeah, and the information in there is amazing. So it's a really good one. It's one of my favorites so far. Another really good one, especially for like the viewers that actually like books and stuff. Peak, if you haven't read that.
Peak?
Peak, like the peak of a mountain.
Okay.
It is a very good book on deliberate practice and how it works with the brain and how to actually establish learning an actual thing. So whatever it is, like it don't matter. You want to learn how to open a water bottle. It's deliberate practice. It's the way that you go about doing it. So, to simplify it a little bit, it's like, remember when we first started reading and writing, and when we started writing, we started looking at that little traced line, the dotted line of the A, and we would have to sit there and like do it over and over and like write the A over and over in capital and then lowercase. Well, we did it deliberately. We did it with obvious repetition. And then over time, you developed your own version of the A that you write now. So really cool and how the brain works essentially. But the Peak is a really good book. And then obviously With Winning in Mind, really good book. So for shooters, competitors, or just people that are just interested in learning things.
Alrighty, so let's do this then. Let's close out because we'll probably want to schedule another conversation.
For sure, man.
You can talk to my secretary, which is me.
Same.
I'm being sarcastic, but no. So right now, where can people find you, and where do you want them to find you?
So the easiest one is on my website, kinetic-consulting.net, and then all the social media, YouTube, everything is linked off of there. So yeah, if you look at the top right, you'll find all the links to all that stuff. So if you want to follow me on those, that's fine too.
And then the gear that you've come out with, you've got your Nerd, which is the retention, and then you've got the Lola, which is a light bearing. Okay, both of them helmet-borne systems. Those can be purchased on your website.
Yeah, those are all available on my website, to include my dump pouch, which is a pouch that rolls up and is almost hidden by your mags. So
it goes on. Does it like when you roll it up, it hides underneath your mags?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So it doesn't take any extra space on your belt.
I'm looking for a dump pouch right now to put on my new belt. So maybe I'll check it out. So that's cool. Because I've got two belts right now, one in multicam and one in multicam black, because multicam black is gangster.
Make those colors.
But the multicam one is actually one that we used in Ranger Battalion, and I don't think they make it anymore.
Probably not.
So I've had it forever, and now it's like, oh, well, I've got a new belt, so I got to get a new dump pouch, and that is a necessary piece of gear. Don't care what you say.
I like having them. Some people don't use them, but this one will literally hide behind your mag pouch, and when it's rolled up, it doesn't take any space. And then when it's opened, it doesn't take any belt space either.
All right, cool. I'll give it a shot, or I'll give it a look. Well, with that in closing, for those of you who are still with us today, thank you very much for listening. Your support has not gone unnoticed, so thank you very much. And then also, if you are new to the channel, you want to support the channel, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. I believe we're on iHeartRadio right now, but I've never used the app anyway, so I don't know. And then the last thing is, if you want to find us and you want to support the channel, we are at redactedllc.com. That's where you can find our merch and our stickers and stuff. So good luck with that. As for you, Jon, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think I am better off for it, and I will talk to you soon.
Absolutely, buddy. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.